I want to thank a couple of people, a lot of people who made this possible. I want to thank especially Dianne Jacob, who traveled across the country to be with us today. Anyway, so thank you, Diane. And then all of the panelists. There are over 60 panelists that will be coming today and tomorrow. An amazing group of people. So I want to thank, I won't have a chance to perhaps meet every single one of them, but I do want to thank them all for their contributions to this panel, to this series of panels. And then, of course, our events coordinator, Chelsea Parrish, everybody knows as SUS Events. She's back there looking demented, which she will for the entire rest of the program. And our program manager, Mario Delgado, who always smiles even when the world is collapsing around him. And our program assistant, Sharon Zhao, who may be there but may be running around also. And especially our fabulous designer who is graduating Parsons this semester, Leah Slava, who actually designed the tags, the program, everything. So thank you, Leah. And our program organizers, we have Scott Barton, and we have Cara Da Silva, and we have Kathy Kaufman, who is downstairs in room 404, and we have Ann Mendelson. All of them super, super important for organizing. But there are two people in particular who I have to give very, 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 very special mention. One of them is Roseanne Gold. Roseanne, are you here? Roseanne. She has done amazing work throughout the organization process. And of course, our beloved Andrew F. Smith, sitting right here. Okay, so there's just one little bit of business here. It's time to embarrass Andy just a little bit. Andy has actually taught here at the New School for nearly 23 years at this particular point in time. Our food studies program has only existed for about a decade. So he's been here before anything else was here. He's sort of the rock on which we founded food studies in some interesting and fun ways. In any case, he's been threatening that he's going to retire. He's been threatening that. Yes, he has. Look at that. But he says, okay, I'll still do some programs. Well, if this program and the program from last night, the Culinary Luminary program about Madeleine Kamen, is any inkling of what it means for Andy to retire, I think we're just fine. Thank you very much. I don't think we have an issue. In any case, I'd like Andy to get up here for a second. Just up, because I want to just publicly thank him for all of the work, the support, the help that he's given us at the New School Food Studies program, and especially all of the students, many of them are here, who are Andy Smith's groupies. Anyway, thank you so much, Andy. Okay. Now, I'm going to hand it off to Andy Smith. Andy, you're on.
One of the first moments in my life in which I can't say anything because I'm so excited by the introduction. Now, I did begin teaching here more than 20 years ago, classes that I taught was food writing, and I know that there are a couple of students actually that took food writing classes from me. If you raise your hand, because some have been to it. One of the things that I started off trying to do is figure out what book do you use. And there was, in that time, decades ago, there was a good book on writing recipes. There was another couple books on how to write cookbooks. There was no general book on writing until 2005, when this wonderful book came out called Little Writes for Food by Dianne Jacob, which I have used as a text in virtually all of my food writing classes ever since. It has now gone through 3 editions. It's in Chinese, just in case any of you need some help needing to look at it. And it's been translated, I guess, in Spanish and
Taiwanese, Korean, and Spanish.
And I'm discussing with her the 4th edition, which I hope she will be encouraged to write and come out soon so we can, in case I'm teaching a class on food writing, I might want to use it. So. I am delighted to say this is one of the first books on food writing that actually covered everything, and to look at the books as they change over the time in the different editions shows how food writing has changed from the print world. How many of us started off in the print world? A few of us started off in the old print world, and some of us have found it more difficult to move into the digital world, which is the purpose on this program today, to help those of us elderly that can help the younger groups better understand where we're coming from and better understand how we can take advantage of things that you're doing. So I would like to, and I want you to know that Diane and I have been on at the same conferences and been at the same program, but the first time that we have ever met was 5 minutes ago. This is the first time we have actually ever met in person, so I'm greatly honored. Why? I know that you started your in college in writing, but when did you get into food writing?
Oh, good morning, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you, Andy, and Bea and Roseanne. Thank you all. Well, I went to journalism school twice, once in Canada, once in the United States. And in Canada, it was a 2-year program where you would end up working for a newspaper. And I didn't have a degree, so when I came down here, I thought, well, I better get a degree. So I got one, and then I worked in magazines and newspapers for a long time as an editor. And my last job was as editor-in-chief of a company called Books That Work, which was a pre-internet CD-ROM company. Who remembers CD-ROMs? Okay. Well, there'd be 17 CD-ROMs per product, if you can imagine. Anyway, well, I left there and I decided to become self-employed. That was more than 20 years ago. And I thought, well, I worked in covered a lot of different topics, so now that I can pick anything I want, what should I pick? And I picked food because my parents were obsessed with food. They were immigrants, and they were Iraqi Jews from Shanghai. And when they came to Canada, they didn't know how to have an identity, so they did it through food. That was how they remembered who they were. And they were totally obsessed from beginning to the end. And so I developed that obsession also. And so that became my topic.
Okay, we know everything in the food writing world has changed in the last decade or so. Newspapers, what's changed in newspapers?
Well, when I was the editor of the women's section, do you remember the women's section? The recipes were filler. I just tore them off the wire and stuck them in when we were pasting up 14-page section because they filled little holes that I had. The whole section was me. I don't think that's changed for most newspapers. Most newspapers are one person, unless you work at the Washington Post, the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, maybe Boston Globe. But they're still, run on a shoestring, and it's very tiring for the editor of the section, and a small budget for freelancers.
A large number of newspapers are now digital, and I've noticed that at least it gives people the ability to write longer articles now.
That's correct. And did anyone see that the New York Times said they made a $25 million profit in the last quarter? And some huge percentage of that was from their recipe database. So some newspapers have figured it out. They might be the only one who has, but there's...
Is that the failing New York Times?
The fake news New York Times.
The fake news media. All right.
Fake recipes.
Fake recipes. So we can... All right. The magazines that we started with 20 years ago, most of them are no longer there. And so how has the digital world changed magazine?
Well, now there's, you just go online. You don't have to buy the magazine anymore, and magazine circulations are down to nothing. It's very sad. I think Taste of Home is the top magazine, and maybe the circulation is 3 million, which is nothing. When I was in university, I wanted to work at the largest circulation magazine in Los Angeles for my internship, and that was 7 million, and it was Playgirl. Does anyone remember Playgirl?
And what were the what were the recipes in Playgirl?
That was before my food writing. No, I'd been a restaurant reviewer before that, but yeah, before my career.
We'll move on to other things now. But there are digital magazines now that are doing extremely well, and the world has changed a great deal about them. Any comments on digital magazines?
They don't pay. Has anyone noticed that?
There are some people here from digital magazines. Do you want to raise your hand and have an alternate view on that? We'll be discussing that a little later. Books and cookbooks. The digital world has changed them dramatically as well.
Yes, because as we all know now, you can go online and find a recipe that has been lifted from another site, which has been lifted from another site. But the thing with cookbooks is that now you have to prove that there's a reason to spend $35-40 on a book because so many of the recipes are online. So the book has to be gorgeous. Have you noticed how gorgeous cookbooks are now? They have pillow tops, they have embossed printing, they have gorgeous photography, they're full color. And so you can't, and they're full of stories often, and you're not going to get the same kind of stories all in one place.
You started blogging in 2009, and blogging is now something that is a 6 or 7 figure profit area for some food writers. How many of you are making 6 or 7 figures?
Yes, I went to the Everything Food Conference last year. Has anyone ever been to that? Okay. The Everything Food Conference is for entrepreneurs who write recipes. These are serious business people, mostly women. Their husbands, they've made so much money that their husbands have. There was one woman whose husband was an attorney, and he dropped out so that he could work with her. Her site right now gets, 15 million hits per month, according to her. And she has an incredible income, as you might imagine, from ads. Anyway, it's a business for these people, mostly women, which is not true of most of us. It's a creative endeavor for a lot of us.
Do you tweet? And if so, what are the strengths and weaknesses of that?
Oh my God, Twitter. Who loves Twitter? One person in the back? Come on. Yes, I do tweet. It's hard. Does anyone get overwhelmed when you're reading the tweets and you think, what the hell do I have to talk about? I don't know, I had toast and jam for breakfast. I know no one cares about that. I'm in my sweats in front of my computer. I just, it's exciting when I travel like this because then I have something to say and pictures to post. And I feel like a lot of the time there's a little in-group that they're all talking to each other and I'm not breaking into the in-group. Do you know what I mean? But it is fun. It's a great source of news and unfortunately trolls for celebrities, not me, but it's sad how especially women are trolled on Twitter.
I forgot the question on food blog. Do you have a blog? And if so, what's the blog name?
My blog is at my website, dianej.com, and it's called We'll Write for Food, surprisingly, in its 10th year.
Websites. How have websites changed food writing?
Going back to those entrepreneurs I was telling you about, who here thinks food writing is a business, by the way? A few people. Okay, good. Well, they have websites, and they have recipes, and they have ebooks, and they have ads, and sponsored posts, and beautiful photography, and they have changed it because We're not going to get a job. We're going to be entrepreneurs most of the time, or hobbyists. I think those are the two categories of food writing. What job is there to be, if you do PR, you could have a job writing press releases about food companies. But so entrepreneurs have to have incredible websites.
How about ebooks?
Ebooks are fabulous if you have a large audience. Most of us don't. I read recently that the average self-published book sells 10 copies a year. And I thought that was insane, and then I remembered, a friend of mine wrote a memoir called Becoming Me. He sells 1 copy a month on Amazon. He's very happy. Hi, Ken. So, he's in that category.
I have tons of complaints about ebooks. Many of my books have been converted into ebooks, and they're now available for free on certain websites, which I have a whole session on Saturday that I'll be bitterly complaining about that. So I'm going to avoid discussion on that right now. Instagram.
Oh, Instagram is the hot thing of the moment, isn't it?
Many of you are on Instagram.
Wow, that is the most hands we've seen this morning. Okay. Yeah, it's very hot, but you know what? 2 years from now, something else will be hot, and things go away. So you just have to keep that in mind. What doesn't go away? Everything, yeah. Google Plus closed down. I remember being harassed by a guy from Google whose job it was to get food bloggers onto Google Plus and grow the platform. He was at all the conferences. He would phone me. It was so weird. And now look where it is.
Now, I know most of you are academics and don't have any interest in making money, but I understand that you can make some money in the new digital age.
Yes, you can. And but you have to have a different mindset. First of all, you have to think that what you're doing is a business, and you have to be an entrepreneur. Who here has taken business classes? Oh, very good. Okay, those people have potential to actually earn money. Okay, the rest of us are just creative people who go along, and there was a bitter Twitter fight a couple days ago between the editor of Roads and Kingdoms and a former client of mine who is a freelance writer about how Roads and Kingdoms has been nominated for a Beard Award again, and they pay like $25 or $50 for an article, and she's like, well, if you're so good, why can't you pay us decent money? And you know what the answer is? He doesn't have to, because we will take that money. We're part of the problem.
I raised one ethical issue with regard to the digital age. Other ethical issues that we need to consider, how about I go on to websites and all of a sudden I find I've got 10,000 cookies on my computer that I've got to erase without any notification thereof. Any ethical issues that we need to be concerned about?
Well, the issues of recipe copying is really the biggest issue for people, and stealing photographs.
Are you suggesting that somebody would steal recipes? Even in the print age, I'm sorry to say, people were stealing recipes.
It's not new.
Okay. So what other ethical issues are that you're concerned with or want to raise?
Well, people steal photographs. They erase watermarks. I mean, there's all kinds of stealing.
How do you control your copyright on the internet?
Well, I mean, most people give up after a while because you don't want to become your full-time job chasing people down and giving them takedown notices. And
I used to complain bitterly when I saw 2 or 3 pages of something that I'd written on a website with somebody else's name on it, word for word, and now I don't even bother to check because it's not, you can't easily get them off, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the world's changed, and it's different. If there's going to be a 4th edition, what will you do differently?
Well, I had 7,000-word chapter on restaurant reviewing, and I have concluded that hardly anyone cares about restaurant reviewing. Does anyone here want to be a restaurant reviewer? You are a restaurant reviewer. Okay, one person in this crowd is a restaurant reviewer. I don't understand why no one is interested, but it's rare. So
I'm
that's
sorry
gonna
to
go.
report the only restaurant reviews I write are the negative ones, the ones that I've gotten, not good service and the food's terrible. So I can blow off some steam on restaurants that have loud music. Anybody in here ever complain about the loud music in a restaurant? I can tell you're all over 60. So,
Yes.
What-
Frank Bruni just wrote about that, being over 50 in a restaurant. I could really relate.
or alternately going into a restaurant and having people taking flash photographs of their food. Has anybody suffered through that, through a good meal? A few of us had. Thankfully now, most people are now doing at least the photographing without the flash, which is fine with me. So that's it. So what else will go be a change if a fourth edition comes out?
I wrote a chapter about fiction writing, but I don't think that should stay just because the rest of the book's nonfiction.
Anybody write fiction food related? I mean, I used to
Who?
read the mystery food fiction writers. I thought they were good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
They're
that.
called culinary capers or
Capers.
cozies or something.
Haven't seen any of those published in years, so maybe that's gone. I don't know. Anybody else? I thought fiction would be something that I'd like to do. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm thinking about doing that.
The titles are the best part. Phyllis Richmond wrote one called The Butter Did It.
All right, we have a few students in the room. Do we have our students? Many of the students are in 404. We've had to shift them out because of space issues. What advice would you have for them?
Keep your day job, marry someone with an income, win the lottery, live with your parents. Are you getting the drift? And I mean, we're doing this because we love it, and that is a privilege that most people don't have. So that is really the thing to remember, that we are very fortunate to do this work.
How about advice for those of us reminiscing about the old print age?
Well, the old print age is still going, and newspapers are still dependent on your subscription. And cookbook authors, all the cookbook authors in this room are going to be very grateful if you are still purchasing their books. How many cookbook authors are in the room? Yes, and we'll have a reception tonight. So yes, we still need print.
So we do have copies of your third edition that will be
Thank
for
you.
sale tonight at the reception. How many of you are going to the reception? Oh my gosh, this sounds good. Okay. What do you have coming up in your own life?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that.
That's one of the questions she gave to me. I just thought I'd mention that.
Who wants to come to Italy with me this summer? We're going to be in a villa, totally over-the-top villa with animal heads mounted on the wall and marble ceilings and chandeliers in bathrooms, and we'll be doing food writing. So I have some postcards. I'm going to be handing them out.
And what's your blog name again? Do you just have?
Well, Write for Food. It's on DianneJ.com, DIANNEJ.com. And I have a free newsletter. Who subscribes to my newsletter here? Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much. In fact, I gave away a ticket to this conference. Maybe you weren't supposed to know that. That friend of mine couldn't go, so I gave it away in my newsletter. So it's free, and there's a lot of really good links about food writing and what's going on in the food writing world in it. It only comes out twice a month because I really hate it. All those people who want to send you a newsletter every day, like, no. It's bad enough. Write all your spam.
There are exceptions to some people who send it every day, and I love every instant of what they write. So I just want to.
Who?
I won't mention any name, but she's sitting right.
Marion Nessel in the front row, going strong, 5 days a week. I'm a big reader.
I want to open this up to questions. Anybody have questions?
Oh, come on, I know it's early.
Roseanne.
Yes.
Can we get a mic over there?
Fabulous. Hold on.
Diane, you so got my attention. How does that woman actually make money from her 15 million views? month?
Ads. There are
How does
ads
that
on her
work?
site.
And
That's
she
how
creates
most people
recipes?
most big bloggers are making their big money from ads. And then there's lots of other things. They get paid like
But what is she
5
actually offering? Because maybe we would all like to do
She's
that.
offering recipes.
Her own recipes?
She's offering, a sloppy Joe recipe that went viral. I mean, David Leibovitz and I were looking at her blog going, yeah, so? But she's a genius. She's a genius in SEO. She's a genius in marketing. She's a genius on Pinterest. I mean, the recipes are sort of, she was a caterer. She knows how to do the recipes, but we're like, yeah.
And what is the name of her site?
Oh, no, now I can't tell you because I've said these things about her.
No, but
But tomorrow, but listen,
they're very positive things.
Deb Perlman is coming today. I read somewhere that she has 30 million unique readers per month. Okay? She's coming. Wait, when is she on?
Tomorrow. Or
Tomorrow. Or today?
today? Oh, sorry.
Okay. You want to see someone at the top of their game? Deb Perlman.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diane. This is great.
We had a Zoomed-in interview with Bjork Ostrom this morning, and we asked the question, how much money are you making? And he said, I no longer talk about money and how much we're making, but I will say that we started off at $20 a week, and I stopped talking about it when we were generating $40,000 a month. And so we're not talking small potatoes. I like small
Nope.
potatoes. We are talking about genuine profit centers, and some people, I understand, not only claim, but in fact are making 7 figures on their writing on blogs and digital work. So
Correct. Sponsored post, ambassadorships, spokesperson work, blah, blah, blah. Yes.
a question.
Ken.
Hi. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
I love your book. It has been such a huge help for me.
Thank you.
But my question is not about the book. Would you recommend a person to start a blog, let's say as of now, 2019? And if yes, I mean, of course, but if no, what would be the alternative?
Well, I used to think that was the best way because there's no gatekeepers. You can write about anything you want. You can see what you like. It's a good way to figure out what you want to write about. And in the beginning, you don't have any readers, so it doesn't matter if you write about stuff no one's interested in. But what kills me is when I talk about that, because most food bloggers are hobbyists, and then they realize how much work it is, and then they ask me, well, how can I get 1 million readers a month? Well, you can't take crummy pictures, and your writing has to be really good, and do you know what a good lead is, and blah, blah, blah. But now you can write long form on Instagram, but it's not, Instagram doesn't belong to you, that platform. Your blog belongs to you. So that's what a lot of people are doing, microblogging, which is 300 words on Facebook and, various social media platforms.
Another question?
Hi, my name is
Hi,
Rick
Rick.
Rogers. Hi. I've been doing this a while. And I just wanted to ask you to talk more about the importance of photography in being a food writer today. Because I can tell you that I'm up for jobs and that I lose jobs because I'm not doing my own photography. So many editors want you to turn in a manuscript with the photography these days. So could you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a mixed blessing because, well, first of all, I have clients and sometimes they hire me to help them launch blogs and their photos are terrible. And so I make them at least take an online photography class. Andrew Scrivani has an online photography class that's $125. I mean, anyone can afford that. Because it's not optional, it's just as important to be a good photographer as it is to be a good writer in the online world, maybe sometimes more important. But when it comes to writing a cookbook, it's kind of a mixed blessing, and I work with people on book proposals, and sometimes, a lot of the time they're bloggers and they become good photographers, and we have this question, do you want to take the photos for your cookbook? And it is so much work, because they have to write the whole manuscript. So first they're making the recipe to make the recipe to see if it's any good. So they make it the first time, maybe they make it the second time, then they write their manuscript, then they have to make the food all over again to photograph it, and they have a lot of people have like a 6-month deadline, 8-month deadline, and it's really hard. And also you don't get paid well. You know, the 2 cookbooks I did with a chef, we paid a photographer $20,000 and $25,000 to do the photography. But if you're doing your own photography for your book, the editors are like, well, we'll just add, you know, $5,000 for you to do all this work. So, but yes, Rick, I know what you're saying, that you're expected to do everything now, but I don't think we should, I mean, I don't know if you want to do everything. It's too much for a lot of people.
Another question.
I've got a, so is it your impression that the opportunities across various platforms are just narrowing now that, you know, there are fewer publishing houses, fewer big names in cookbooks, fewer blogs that are working, fewer, you know, websites? Is that just the nature of people sort of crowding into, you know, everyone wants to blog and then there's too many that they get tired of that platform and use something else?
Well, yes, it's narrowing, but new things happen. Like 10 years ago, could somebody make $80,000 a year from the internet? No. But I mean, I have a former client who's making $60,000 a year part-time from her blog. Part-time. She's so bored she started another blog on fashion. Okay? And there's pictures of her pouting all over the place. Okay? It's so much fun for me because I get to see her. So yeah, I mean, we couldn't do that before. So it's what you make of it, really.
Another question.
Do you think that people who are using these newer technologies in combination with older techniques are succeeding faster than other people? Like for someone who has, let's say, an Instagram where they're doing a short microblog post and then linking it to maybe a blog or a YouTube channel, do you think that that type of cross-platform is working better for people, or does it not make a huge difference if the content
There
isn't
was just an article in the New York Times about Instagram, wasn't there? It was a long article, and it was about longer posts, and they seemed to think that those were succeeding. And I think, yeah, all the linking is important. You want people to stay. I mean, that's part of your job, is to get them to stay in your web and go to the YouTube, go to the blog, go to Instagram, and keep clicking on things, and hopefully it'll lead to something, a larger audience.
Another question.
Just want to ask, has anybody in the room heard of platform cooperativism? That's a reaction I had to your comment to the students, that we have this impression that the exploitation and theft in the digital economy is unavoidable. And there are activist movements to try to reverse that pyramid.
Wonderful.
And one of them is here at the New School, and I'll go over and talk to the director, Trevor Schultz, in the next hour and see if he wants to send any information. But it's activists and labor activists to say that labor on the internet should not be free, and it shouldn't be unavoidable that that's exploited, and there's no resistance against it. There are movements, and one of them is right here at the New School, platform cooperativism.
Well, it's kind of a weird subject, because I've been blogging for 10 years and all my content is free. And I do that of my own free will. So, and how many people here have free content that's appeared on the internet? Yeah. But it's different. It's one thing if you do it of free will, and it's another thing if you're being taken advantage of. So.
There are one final question.
Hi, my name is Shika, and I absolutely love your book. It's been very inspiring.
Thank you, Shuka.
So, you know, the world of food writing and blogging is changing so rapidly. What do you think the future has for us as food writers, food bloggers, if you were to make a prediction 3 to 5 years from now?
Well, for one thing, I think the door is a little bit more open for people of color, and publishers are a little more interested in your stories, or they're trying, some of them maybe. So I think that's a good thing. But otherwise, the door is open for any kind of self-expression. I worked with somebody on a book of poetry that was about food. There's political food writing. There's food writing on every subject. Andy's working on a book on food waste. So you can go anywhere you want with it. And that's where your own take on it is really important, because it's a way to distinguish yourself and get your work to stand out, is your personal take and what interests you.
I forgot whether I asked you this question or not, but what are you doing next? Do you have something exciting that you're doing? She said 10% of all sales that we make out of this group come back to my profit. So I thought I'd mention that.
It would be $17 if I sold all 10 books. Let's see, is anyone going to ICP? I'm going to be teaching a class there on voice, which is what I was just talking about. It's only $100, which is pretty cheap, I think. Not as inexpensive as this conference. Is this an amazing price for this conference? Let's have a round of applause. Yeah. But that's what I was talking about earlier, that voice, your take on things, that is the most important thing, I think. And people want to flatten out their voice. You look at other food writing that's generic, and everybody wants to talk in the head note about, make this tonight and eat it with a green salad and a loaf of crusty bread. I mean, come on, whose voice is that? It's no one's voice.
Thank you for coming, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, I'll be here the whole time, so come and talk to me.